time now for us to reflect on sport for the first time in 2026. We're going to look back over the weekend's action, and we're going to begin with hurling. And of course, a good start for Clare in Group B of the Munster Hurling League. It sounds certainly a score-filled game, which Clare just edged, beating their Shannonside rivals Limerick 320 to 3 goals and 18 points in Tulla on Saturday. And let's hear from Clare senior hurling manager Brian Lohan speaking afterwards, and he says, of course, look, it's the first week of the new year, pre-season competition and all that, but still, I guess anytime you beat Limerick, there's plenty of positives that can be taken from such a performance.
These competitions, they're not the be-all and end-all, but when you get into the games and they're tight games, you like to win them. So from that perspective, we were able to see a good few guys and a good competitive game, and came out the right result. Doesn't mean a huge amount, but at the same time it was good.
So there you go, on a glass half full perspective there from Brian Lohan. And joining me to reflect on that and the weekend's other action is our sports editor Derrick Lynch and our commentator Sil O'Connor. Derrick, good win for Clare. Was it an exciting game? Certainly a high scoring encounter.
Yeah, it certainly was a high-scoring encounter, and I suppose settled in the most dramatic of fashions with Mark Rogers' late penalty, and then Limerick had a free late on that could have been dropped in around the house. There was a little bit of confusion given that there were 2 down that he went for it. But yeah, it was a good outing, really tough conditions from the point of view of it being so bitingly cold, but the pitch in Tulla was in fantastic order, and the club out there, as they always do, put on a mighty showing. A huge crowd really got into it, and I suppose the fact it was Clare and Limerick kind of added to us as well. And also, Clare named quite a strong team. You had Conor Cleary at 3, Diarmuid Ryan at 6, Darragh Lohan and Ryan Taylor at midfield. David Fitzgerald started, and Mark Rogers top scored with 111. So coming down the home straight, Limerick, they brought on an awful lot of experience. Peter Casey came off the bench, Garrod Hagerty came off the bench. So while it might have only been Munster Senior Hurling League, it already had a feeling of neither of these two teams wanting to give to the other two handy.
What about yourself, Sil? What did you make of it? I mean, look, as Brian Lohan said, the game was there to be won. Good to win it, even though, maybe it won't count for much later on in the season. Your own perspective on it?
Well, I remember talking to, first of all, Happy New Year to everybody, including yourselves there, Alan. So hopefully everything going well in 2026. I remember talking to a Clare manager one time in the month of January. It was his first year in charge. I remember saying to him, great win the weekend. And he said, yeah, great, he said, but there's no cups given out in January. And I suppose Brian Lohan and I suppose John Kiley and many other managers will look at the opportunity to play the games, these, we call them the warm-up challenge games, as they call it. It is a Munster League. It'd be great to win it. It was a great win. But when you see a sellout on the 3rd of January for Clare and Limerick, the best to look down the line when a person goes looking for tickets. It's a great workout. It's a great opportunity for players as well, just to get a taste of a county jersey and maybe get the cobwebs off the established players. But from a Clare Limerick point of view, I think they both enjoyed it. There's no question about that. But they also know exactly where they are at this time of the year. And as I said, getting the cobwebs off and getting ready for a busy league campaign.
Yeah, Derrick, I just wonder about these pre-season competitions. Given there were a number of games that were called off due to the weather conditions, but then I heard some managers like at Rossiter or Wexford as well saying that it's better to have these games than not, because if you had challenge matches at this stage year in place of the likes of the Munster Hurling League or the McGrath Cup, you can't replicate the same. These aren't the most intense games you will play, but you can't replicate the competitive levels and the crowd and everything else that you would get in these games in a challenge match.
Yeah, that's what makes it such a pity, I guess, in many ways, that they weren't there last year, particularly in a football sense when you had new rules to try and bed in as well. So I know we'll talk about that shortly in terms of Clare's opening game. But I've spoken to a couple of inter-county managers about this, and what they'll say is it's just a day less of a headache in January trying to organise a challenge game, trying to find a time, a venue, a place, a ref and all the rest of it. So as Sil mentioned, the sellout crowd in Tulla, that's great. It becomes a different intensity in front of that, albeit we're not losing sight of what it is, a pre-season competition. But it's hard to replicate that. And I mean, you looked in at the Clare performance, and I suppose first and foremost, we want to send our best wishes to Jack Kerwin. The early reports are that he's recovering okay, and that he got a bad old head injury. The game was held up for 10 or 12 minutes while he was looked after, and credit to all the medical staff that came onto the field to help him, the civil defence and the ambulance crew and the Clare medical backroom team as well. So the right precaution was taken. They took their time with him, got him off the field, and we hope he recovers quickly, because he had scored a brilliant individual goal just before that, and it was as route one as you get. Puck out from debutant Mark Sheedy down the line to Jack Kerwin, took the ball out of the clouds and raced through the centre of the Limerick defence before batting the ball to the back of the net. It was a really, really brilliant score, and that kind of announced him, I suppose, and we all knew of him in recent times, but to do it on that kind of a scale in front of a big crowd, the game being streamed live and all the rest of it, so that was a real positive. But as I say, we're certainly thinking of Jack and hoping that the recovery is nice and rapid.
Yeah, hopefully. So what's your perspective on that, Sil? That we didn't have these competitions last year. It's better to have them than not on the whole. And if it was challenge matches in their stead, just wouldn't be the same. And the managers will get more of this, even though, as Brian Lohan said, it's not the be all and end all. Certainly he'll glean more from players who played against Limerick than he would have if they're playing a challenge match against them or against other opposition.
Yeah. I'd be very straight with you, Alan, on this. I compliment the provincial councils here in organising the competitions. That's what they're doing at the moment. Now, how a county, how a manager, or how players take it, but then that's another subject altogether. The fact that they're there, they're put in place, and it's an opportunity for teams to get an organised venue. I mean, if you had that challenge game on Saturday above in Dr. Daly Park, I mean, to take that out of Munster Council, there's a lot of arrangements and a lot of subjects to be covered, in that, as regards, as Derrick was just saying about the medical, and the best of luck to Jack Kerwin. I think he's one of the lads we'll be seeing quite a bit of going forward. Now, if you look at that, right, then it's up to the county that's hosting it to organise all that. Whereas the Munster Council is an official fixture, and it's taken in that way. Everything has to be arranged in that way. How the counties, how the players, how the managers take it is another subject, as I said. But no, I look at it's better than going around the place looking for challenge games. It's better going around the place looking for venues. If it was organised, if it was well drilled, you know what I mean? There was a limit on the number of people that could go into it from a safety point of view, and that's what I'd say. I don't see anything wrong with them. I wouldn't be blaming Munster Council for having a Munster League or any provincial council. It's there. It's a competition. It's official. How you take it is up to the managers and the counties.
And I suppose, Derrick, look, while the Munster Senior Hurling League is there to be played, you might as well try and go as far in it as possible. And Clare have certainly given themselves a great chance being the final with that win over Limerick, who face Cork this Wednesday before Clare play them next Monday. Brian Lohan, he's saying it's not the be all and end all, but now with one win under his belt, would he rather be in the final than not? The more games you get at this stage of the season and more competitive games you get at this stage of the season, the better, and particularly against the Cork team who, will want to start the year well themselves, bounce back from, I suppose, the huge disappointment of how they somehow conspired to lose last year's All-Ireland final, being 6 points up at half-time.
Yeah, and you have the new dynamic of Ben O'Connor and then his coach leaving after a couple of weeks there as well. So, is all well in the new setup either. So there's a whole load of dynamics going into it. But as you say, like this time of year, it's about performances and it's about building momentum as well. Like you go back to last year, Clare lost a very, very tidy game in the first round of the National League against Kilkenny, and we know how the year kind of unfolded, or maybe didn't from that point. Winning is a habit, regardless of whether it's winning a coin toss or winning a Munster Hurling League game. It's a winning feeling going back into the dressing room, and you can't get enough of that within a group, and particularly a group now that have this new dynamic that we keep talking of having the young fellas that were blooded last year, and now having your big names that are rested from having been out last year through injury back in the fold as well. And that was exemplified in the centre of the Clare defence on Sunday with Conor Cleary at 3, or on Saturday, with Conor Cleary at 3 and Dermot Ryan at 6. two lads who had really suffered with injuries in 2025. Then, just as we were actually talking to Brian, there was one of the most star-studded warm-downs I've ever seen, which included the likes of Tony Kelly and Adam Hogan being put through their paces from the end line out to the 21, because obviously they hadn't featured. So, there's a lot of talent to come back into this Clare team refreshed, and with the great experience of those younger players as well, which is mighty to be able to draw on. And as you say, a good game now, and Mallow will be another good test, and thanks be to God we're only going as far as there. We don't have to face it over the bridge, but that'll be a good game next Monday. And of course you have the dynamic now as well of the third level competition starting, and this new arrangement that's in place, that if there's players involved in midweek fixtures, that they can play for their county and all the rest of it. So what it'll mean is an awful lot of players will get game time now in the county jersey in the next couple of weeks, and all aimed in towards, from a hurling perspective, that Dublin game on the 25th of January in Páirc Uí Chaoimh.
Yeah, and I suppose just before we take the break, to finish on that, still the opportunity to play at least one and hopefully two more games and get a bit of silverware under the belt. And as Derrick says, afford an extra game is another opportunity for some of those big names who didn't feature to come back and get some game time into their legs. Will be very much welcomed if it pans out that way. Of course, that will all be dependent on a good result against Cork this day week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the players, again, as I said before, you can do all the training in the world, but when you actually have a competitive game, as the Munster Hurling League is at a certain level, you can't buy that kind of competition, no matter how many times you train, no matter how many challenge games you play within the panel of players. Absolutely, it's an opportunity. It's a huge opportunity for the established players to slowly but surely get back into the pace. But it's also a huge experience for players starting off for the very, very first time. Again, they're wearing a county jersey. What the status of that is, or what the competition of the status of the competition is, makes no difference. They're putting on a county jersey. It's a huge occasion and something I think that they will remember. No question about that. So it's an opportunity on both sides for the younger players to get that jersey on their backs, and for the established players, the experienced players, just to get the rhythm going again. And that's a rhythm we've all enjoyed over the last couple of years.
That is for sure. Look, gents, we'll just pause there for a moment and take a break, and when we come back we'll reflect on the start of the Paul Madden era with the Clare senior footballers.
We are the pulse of Clare,
with the latest local news and real stories.
Clare FM's Morning Focus.
And we're continuing our review of the weekend sport with Derrick Lynch and Sil O'Connor. And let's move to the big ball and the first game of the Paul Madden era as Clare senior football boss. A winning start, 3-10 to 11 points in the McGrath Cup against Waterford in Dungarvan. And Derrick, on the face of it, you look at that scoreline, you say, it was a bit of comfort there, but it wasn't quite. That doesn't really tell the full story. Waterford certainly put it up to Clare at points.
Yeah, they certainly did, and I suppose by Clare's own admission, they were wasteful enough as well in that first half. But I suppose ultimately the goals were proving the difference, and the two Clare got, there was a lot to really like about them. Two debutants getting it. Joe Rafferty got the first, Quillan O'Dea got the second, and then later on Jamie Stack kind of finished the game off with the third goal when he was introduced off the bench. So an awful lot to like for Paul and his crew. But look, we know Paul Madden down the years in the standards he sets. We've seen what he achieved with Éire Óg, and even talking to him after the game, he was disappointed enough with their shot conversion. But I can tell you, having stood on the field for about 4 or 5 minutes talking to Paul after the match, my feet were so cold, Alan, that I can tell you I would have great respect for any man that put boot to ball at all, regardless of where it ended up afterwards on Friday night. It was that cold down in Dungarvan, so you have to take that into account as well. It was a heavy, kind of almost frosty ball for a finish. But I suppose what they'll be looking at is continued development from the point of view of decision making and trying to do the right thing. This time of year, from their perspective, it's about trying to do the right thing. As the year opens up, it'll become easier to do that. And from that point of view, I think he'll be very happy. The structure of the team looked a little bit better. Kickouts was a massive talking point from a Clare football perspective last year. Just only the one game to go off from this point of view already, but it looked a little bit better. It looked like there was a plan. Michael Nash and Brian Mack did really well at midfield. Dermot Coughlin, I thought, was excellent. And the two lads that made their debut up top in Joe Rafferty and Quillan were excellent as well. Morgan Gary tried really, and I thought James Curran was very close to player of the match as well at wing back, the Dora Bearfield, and had a really, really positive game and picked off a couple of points as well. So a lot of positives for Paul to carry into the game in Clarecastle tomorrow evening against Kerry. We know it's a mini little dress rehearsal for what's to come in Championship in a couple of months' time, but that'll be far from people's minds tomorrow evening. And it'll be interesting to see. It'll be a brilliant Kerry team that'll come up, no doubt. But, how much tinkering will Jack O'Connor do with it? And again, the Sigerson comes into it. Clare won't have Tristan O'Callaghan, Brian Mack or Mark McInerney available to them because of the timing of the game and the crossovers. So that just means that more players will get their opportunity and Paul will get to run the rule over a few more.
And I suppose still, it's a bit much to expect the winds of change to completely envelop the Clare senior footballers when it is only Paul Madden's first game in charge, and particularly when you see a fellow who had over a year in charge of Manchester United, Ruben Amorim, and we never really saw the way he wanted his team to play. But it sounds like from what Derrick is saying, like even in the first outing, you could see the beginnings, the roots of how he wants his Clare side to play taking hold, or certainly change is beginning to take hold.
Well, I know it mightn't be popular saying this, but I hope Clare get on better than Man United are getting on at the moment, Ellen. Look, I'm really, really looking forward to the Paul Madden era. And I suppose I was just thinking about this, about what direction Paul will be going in. Watching some of the games, a lot of the games in the Club Football Championship this year, an awful lot of players, spring to mind right throughout different games. And, it was so enjoyable for a lot of different players, young players, and there's no doubt about it. But I'd say Paul has a handle on every single player who played from senior all the way down to junior in the Championship. So looking forward to that. Good win against Waterford, wasn't there to see that, but it's a win, and it was an expected win as well against the Waterford side. But then again, at this time of the year, leading up to the league, is going to be very, very experimental. Kerry tomorrow evening, just taking into account, as Derrick was saying, the Fitzgibbon, also the fact that there's 3 Kerry clubs in the All-Ireland Senior, Intermediate and Junior finals, will take away a number of players as well. So it'll be very interesting to see how it gets on tomorrow evening on a very, very fast-moving pitch in Clarecastle, and you never know what might come out of that. It would be great to win it. Clare's record in the McGrath Cup is hit their top of the list in that. So we can add to that. A trophy is a trophy, but the bigger picture, of course, is promotion from Division 3 down the line, and I know everybody is focused on that.
Yeah, there are, Derrick, bigger fish to fry later on in the year, as Silla's touched on there. But this will be Kerry's first outing of the year. Positive result tomorrow would see Clare is the final, and it'd be great to get some sort of positive result against the All-Ireland champions for Paul Madden. Helped, no doubt, by, as Sil alluded to, could be some key players out because they will be on club duty. Does that give Clare a significant advantage? It'll still be a huge challenge. How do you see tomorrow's game unfolding?
Yeah, I don't think it gives Clare any significant advantage now, to be honest, because what will come up from Kerry is still going to be very, very formidable. And the fact that they're down so many other key players means that there are key players there that might feature that mightn't have otherwise, So there's still going to be a strong hand for Jack O'Connor to pick from. But from a Clare point of view, again, I go back to it. It's not so much about the result. I don't think anybody's going to fall down on the ground crying about not getting into a McGrath Cup final. But it'll again be about performance. It'll be about decision making, and as it always is with Paul Madden, it'll be work rate. People talk about the heroic journey in the last couple of years and the work rate that has come into that club. I think it has come via the conduit of Paul Madden and the standards that he has set, and you can already see that in his Clare team, in that he's demanding those standards. And also they look at the minute like they're playing a really good system for their 3 up top, in that there's one player designated to be the link man when the attack eventually breaks down, and then you have 2 men kept deep inside, and everybody knows where everybody else is going to go. So again, it's just about tweaking that system, making sure that not only your starting 15, but your 5 subs that will come on know what their role will be in whatever position of the pitch they're brought on in. And all roads are leading to Newry on the 24th of January for that 6 o'clock throw-in the first game of the league. Everything up to that is just preparatory, and that includes tomorrow night.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Well, look, positive start for Paul Madden and for Brian Lowen. Anything else that you want to give a mention to, Derrick?
Yeah, a couple of bits, I suppose, with Clare connections over the weekend, Adam, particularly in the club scene. And I suppose we have to send a huge congratulations to Ats and Roy on their All-Ireland Camogie Club final win down in Simple Stadium. The surface of the pitch, I suppose, is another debate to have, but they were captained by Dervla Higgins, who of course is a Clare Senior Football Championship winner with Kilmehel this year as well. So she's had a fantastic season, and I know they're going to celebrate that win in the next couple of weeks as well. But also that brilliant victory for St. Bridget's in the All-Ireland Club semi-final, and their skills acquisition coach is a man from Clamorria Bricken, Evan Talty, who played in an All-Ireland Club final back in 2010. So 16 years later, he's heading back to Jones's Road again, this time as a coach, as part of Anthony Cunningham's backroom team. So plenty of clear connections on the success that's still happening.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Derrick, thank you very much, and thank you as well to Sil for joining us for our first sporting review of 2026.